Welcome back to The Pulse. Remember to join the conversation on all our social media handles. Tweet at us with the hashtag The Pulse. My personal handle is at Nana Aisha. Now, let's talk about the Ejura Committee's report. Government has finally published a 55-page report put together by the three-member committee set up to probe the disturbances at Ejura, which led to the death of social media activist Kaka. The committee, among other things, recommends the immediate transfer of the district police commander of Ejura and removal of the municipal chief executive. They also suggest that the families of the two deceased and other affected persons be compensated. This afternoon, there are calls for government to deal with persons who took political decisions that led to the Ejura disturbances, rather than blaming military and police officers who were acting on orders. We'll hear from them in a bit, but first, let's look at the findings in that report, plus the recommendations. And immediately, we'll look at one of it. It says what? There was no need for the security personnel who were deployed in Ejura to restore calm on the 28th June to have left Ejura in the early hours of 29 June. The committee finds that this created a security vacuum in the town. We are convinced that having withdrawn the security personnel deployed on the 28th June from Ejura, the district police commander failed in his duty to adequately brief his superiors in the divisional and regional levels to beef up the personnel and logistic in anticipation of any eventualities on that day. It goes on to say the committee also finds that the situation became fluid and got out of hand because the police did not, one, work on their intelligence sharing, two, failed to prepare for the situation on the ground, and three, over-relied on the military personnel and thereby failed to organize adequately in terms of personnel and equipment. And it goes on to say, in relation to the response of the military personnel on the 29th June, we note from the evidence that immediately the personnel touched down, they started firing warning shots contrary to the evidence of the Central Command, which was to the effect that they gave a verbal warning, which was ignored before the warning shots. And we note that although the firing of live ammunition achieved the intended purpose of dispersing the rioters, it left in its trial unnecessary deaths, pain, and suffering on the people of Ejura. This, in the view of the committee, could have been prevented. And these are excerpts of the committee's report, which has been released by government. There's been mixed reactions about this committee report. First, let's listen to Director of Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, Professor Kwesi Enin, who's calling for a complete overhaul of the security intelligence system in the country.
My only sort of discomfort with the report and its recommendations is that although it was an Ejura-specific committee, particularly the recommendations about the dismissal of the MCE, the training of DCEs, and then district security councils and metropolitan security councils ought not to have been limited to Ashanti region, I think. As Honorable Tobu argues, the underpinning tensions, not about the death per se, but the speed with which anger boiled over, the failure of intelligence and their incapacity to analyze, the weakness of security governance decision-making from the police commander to the district or the metropolitan chief executive, all the way to the regional minister, demonstrates this complexity of interlocking failures.
Right.
And we've seen it in other parts of the country where security decision-making is either slow, is based on false or faulty intelligence, is based on weak analysis, offering very poor options for response. Laws were right from when the victim was brutalized, the urge or the expectation of the community and the family,
right,
a duty of care, the lack of sensitivity by the police commander, a failure of the National Intelligence Bureau individual for the area also, the municipal chief executives' disgraceful, dismissive, unacceptable behavior, and that intelligence flaw or the break in the intelligence cycle was that it took the minister a considerable number of days for him to intervene. And that intervention was limited to a military option, which was most unfortunate.
Joining me in the studio for more on the security analyst is Adam Bonaa. He also CEO of Security Warehouse. Mr. Bonaa, I'm grateful that you're able to make it. There are a lot of recommendations that were also made by the committee. One of the recommendations they made was the fact that the committee is recommending that adequate compensation for the families of the two deceased persons, Abdul Nasser Yusuf and Mutala Suraj, and it says adequate compensation must also be paid to other injured persons, namely Louise Aipa, 20 years, Awal Michal, and Nasif Nuhu. I mean, there are more, but Mr. Bonaa, first, you were one of the people who really pushed for this report to be released. Now it's out. There are a lot of reactions greeting this report, especially the recommendations made by the three-member committee. I mean, what's your own reading of this report?
Well, good afternoon, Aisha, and to the viewers. I must confess, my, observations and call it reservations about the committee sitting, I think they are of public knowledge. And I, spoke extensively on your network, both radio and TV. But subsequently, I think the committee's report, I am satisfied with the work they have done so far in terms of the publication, the recommendations, and call it findings and recommendations. If you ask me to rate them, I would give them 8 out of 10.
Okay.
And the reason is that some of the things that were said publicly, that we all knew were lies, in the findings, found its way in the findings.
Okay.
So, for instance, the military who were there said something else, and that was, captured in the report in terms of findings, but that was an indictment to say the military who were at the committee lied. And so, as far as I'm concerned, some of these things probably did the trick for me. And also, you looked at the first, recommendation that spoke about compensation.
Yeah.
For me, that is very important, so that in times like this, those who might have suffered any excess, any brutality, as for those who are dead, they are gone. But families of these people who died, unfortunately, whatever compensation you pay will not bring them back to life. But it will go a long way to assuage their pain. And those who suffered permanent injuries and some injuries that are treatable, one would say, I'm sure a proper evaluation is being done to ensure that they are adequately compensated. And so, yes, I would say I am satisfied with the recommendation. The only thing that probably is missing, which I think I would have wanted to see, was the regional minister, his involvement. Because according to himself, he took a unilateral decision to send in the military.
Yeah.
And, we know the, the repercussions. The regional commander at the time, who is, I think he used to be the 2IC, and I think he's now the regional commander. There was no mention of him in a way. I wanted to see that as well.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that didn't come in.
Isn't that why your colleagues are asking for government to actually deal for those people who gave the command,
yes,
rather than dealing with the people who were just obliging to the command that was given to them?
Exactly. But this is the committee's work. You know how these committees are.
Yeah.
Unlike, what do you call it, commission, presidential commission, where they are equated to, you need a white paper, this is a committee. So you take the recommendation as, black and white. You implement them.
Okay.
Like Aswansi. Aswansi, the young men who were killed.
Yeah.
A committee was put together by, a ministerial committee was put together to exonerate the dead and said they didn't fire any at the police, so they were killed just like that.
Yeah.
Their families were compensated. And so mine is that, but at least, these people were exonerated, that they didn't get involved in anything, they were just killed. And so as far as I'm concerned, yes, those who are calling for government to probably re-look at the involvement of one of their own or some of their own, I would say the committee, we believe the committee to have been an independent committee. So if we have any, call it reservations, it should be directed at the committee from where I sit. It will be difficult to direct it at government because government decided to set up an independent committee to look into the work.
So definitely the committee should have considered the political heads or leaders who gave these, like the Ashanti Regional Minister.
Exactly.
People were expecting that the committee would ask for his transfer or something critical to be done about his position.
But once they didn't mention it, it becomes now very, I'm not holding brief for government, but I'm looking at it from the security point of view, the structural point of view, and in terms of, because these people, the committee is put together, so you can't, those of us who were expecting the committee to mention these people didn't. And it's the reason why probably I would give them still an A+, because the truth is that looking at what happened, we've got to learn lessons. I'm hoping that as we speak, the regional minister in Kumasi, the now Ashanti Regional Police Commander, I'm not sure what government on the quiet will do, but I'm expecting to hear something maybe on the quiet that this is the processes they are taking.
But isn't it why from day one people were expressing, they did not have enough hope in this 3-member committee because they said they didn't trust them to do a good job?
Well, I am one of the fierce critics of the committee, but like I told you, from what I've seen, I needed to change my position because from where I sit, I can see the aspect of compensation. I can see some lies, they lies, call it lies that were told, and the committee said you lied.
Okay.
The other aspect I think the committee should not have veered into is carcass death.
Exactly.
Because it is a subject of police investigation and court.
So that wasn't even their business. Was it part of their term of reference?
No, it wasn't. So I would not know why they veered into that. Probably they would have to be the best people to explain why they didn't bring the Ashanti Regional Police Commander, the minister, and then why they decided to include what's the name? Carcass death, they said something about it, yes, which I thought wasn't their core mandate because carcass death was a precursor to the, ensuing what then unfolded.
Okay.
Yeah.
But of course, former secretary to the IGP and member of the Defense Committee, Peter Tobu, wants government to decisively implement the recommendations made by the Justice Committee of Inquiry. Listen.
I also want to thank His Excellency the President with the agency with which he set up that committee, even though many of us argued we would have preferred a presidential commission instead of a ministerial committee. But so be it. He's done it, and then the report has been submitted. I think, as Professor Kwesini has said, sometimes it's just a matter of assuaging and letting people verify. Whatever it is, the report has been submitted. The people who sat on this committee, fantastic 3 people, okay? And they did a good job. The report has been submitted. The president wanted it to be done within 10 days. They did it more than the 10 days. And I saw that agency in the president. And I'm so shocked that after the report has been submitted, since the 27th of July up to now, the white paper is yet to be out. And sometimes I ask myself, what was actually the agency the president wanted to demonstrate when he demanded that report in 10 days?
Right.
And as we all know, it's just a political decision to assuage the pain, reduce the tension, and probably do something that can be lasting. We are waiting for the presidential white paper to come out, government white paper to come out, and let's see whether the white paper can ensure that what the committee intended to achieve, to make recommendations to prevent such happenings in the future. Is it possible to prevent it with this report? Is it possible to prevent it with the recommendations? Is it possible to prevent it with government white paper? We're yet to get there.
So that's Peter Chobo there. He's a former police officer. But again, there are calls for a total overhaul of the military apparatus. I mean, what's your position on this one?
Well, for the military, we cannot overhaul the military. How are we going to overhaul the military? The military, since time immemorial, from the King James Bible to the, New Old, and the military has remained the same. And so it will be difficult to, unless we decide to domesticate the military, of which some of us say no. The military, their traditional role is to defend. And when there are emergencies, they come in to perform some functions and they retreat. But what we have done is to begin to have our military perform, the traditional policing role, because we claim we don't have enough police officers and resources. But the military, I am against any attempt to domesticate the military. Let's allow the military to perform their traditional military role. We are surrounded by hostile countries, a sub-region that is in turmoil. So any attempt to domesticate our military wouldn't help us. The police, what I'm aware of, is that at the moment, the form, police unit, the form police unit, which is supposed to be who are trained for, rioting and, civilian disturbances here and there. We only have one, which is in Accra. And it was put together for UN purposes. You can just imagine that a country like ours, we only, in the past, have been thinking about how many people we send out there to go and keep peace in other countries. But out of this recommendation, I am aware that the foreign police unit is going to be expanded from 1 to 25. I think I mentioned it on your network somehow.
Yeah. So
I think Accra is going to get 3, Kumasi would get, 3 or so, Tamale about 2, and all the other 15, the police has, at the moment they have 18 regions, including Tema and Kaswa. So all others will have 1, so that they would be equipped with the, rubber bullets, the tear gases, the water cannons, the pepper sprays, and all those things to deal with rioters. Instead of, you have a situation as you're showing on your screen, people demonstrate, picket, and the police is overwhelmed. And what do? They retreat and the military come in. You don't send military officers with rubber bullets. I keep repeating, you don't send military officers with rubber bullets.
Yeah.
If we decide to domesticate them, then we'll be calling for a middle in between the police and the military. Maybe like the U.S. would usually have a standby force who would come in to deal with some of, but I don't think we can do that. So I would say that the recommendations, as we saw, are not bad. Body cameras are part of I think it's one of the last recommendations.
Number 9.
If this is initiated, I know there's a process that they are going to be procuring this for the police. Body cameras and dashboard cameras, like you see in the US and UK and other places. If we're able to do that, I'm telling you, Aisha, this bribery police officer taking 10 CDs, 5 CDs, 2 CDs. I don't know now that 1 CD and 2 CD notes will be gone. I don't know if when they ask, we'll give them coins. So their pockets likely to create holes. So mine is that let's have a situation where all these, tools are given to them and they are used efficiently, so that in the end, we'll have a police service that can interface very well with the citizens. Because police officers these are people who must deal with civilians. You have the SWAT unit the anti-terrorism unit who deal with some of these excesses. But so let's have the police perform their traditional role so that the military will be called in when every hope is lost. But when people start throwing stones and you bring in the military and they are holding their rifles, they will definitely they will shoot. And if they shoot and people die, and I have heard people say that the military should be punished. It's not that easy. I must be honest.
Why shouldn't it be easy?
Listen,
the military always get, and
the officers know. I'm saying this on the part of security, on the part of legal, even though I'm not a lawyer. you had about 12 officers present that time, all of them carrying rifles. Assuming each of them shot 3 bullets.
Okay.
Can you determine which bullet was a fatal bullet?
Why
So
not?
no, what I'm saying is that you would have,
That
let's
can
say,
be ascertained.
let's say you have 36 bullets fired from 10 officers.
And whoever, I know that when they are going, they record
so what I'm saying is that when 36 bullets,
serial number.
I'm not holding brief for them.
Great.
But I'm looking at the probability of getting the officer who shot and killed the people.
Definitely, we must be able to get, because,
decide,
you know who, everybody dispatched to the grounds. We know the kind of bullets each of them have, don't we?
So we know.
So you know who was supposed to.
When the bullet goes through you, unless the bullet remains in you.
Okay.
When the bullet fired, penetrated and went out, point of entry out, is gone. You don't find the bullet. So, but if the bullet remained in the person, then chances are that you know the bullet that killed the person.
Exactly,
So mine is that
you know who fired that bullet.
So we at the moment don't know. I'm only trying to some form of education so that we are measured. Because then if there are 12 military officers, are you going to sack all of them? Because the bullet that killed the people, all of them went through. So let's be measured and say that military officers should not usually be called as soon as citizens begin to throw stones. Let's have the police with all their riot gear.
But even the military men, in the event that they are called, shouldn't they behave appropriately? Because, in the Ejura instance, they definitely didn't behave
They didn't behave appropriately. My point is that if you look at the chain of command, I'm not holding brief for them.
Yeah.
If you look at the chain of command, regional minister didn't do what was expected.
Exactly.
Police commander, district police commander, the district municipal chief executive. Mine is that the security architecture needs to be looked at, as my colleague Professor Enin alluded to. Until we do that, after 9/11, we have had various countries have changed.
Well,
Today,
definitely a lot of people are worried about implementation in the first place, even though we are not happy with how the recommendations have been done by the other thing is the implementation. And you and I know that a lot of the times these committees bring out their report and it's just gathering dust.
Yeah, so
what's your expectation?
My expectations, as I've had conversations with those who are involved, is that they are going to implement it. The same way, we are talking this way. If they don't, I'm sure we would have a conversation and would have a go at them. We'll let them know they are getting it wrong.
Okay, but
so I believe that they should do that.
Before I let it go, and basically because we talked about how the military has behaved in the last few, in the last period, the Foreign Affairs, ranking member on Foreign Affairs, Okujeto Ablakwa, wrote an article, an open letter to the president, recently, and talked about how there's disquiet among the rank and file of the military regarding the president's travels. And you say he shouldn't have done that?
That is very reckless.
Why?
I don't know Okujeto Ablakwa's age. But those of us who are old enough to have seen 79, do you understand me? When you hear anybody begin to talk this way about our military, what does he know that we don't know?
Okay.
Mine is that you have, this is not, look, the whole of the sub-region is in turmoil. So as a member of parliament, if you think you have information, you know how much information I have? How much information? Maybe if I divulge that information, this country will turn upside down.
Okay.
But I know that if I do, I'll be arrested.
Okay.
So I would call on the CID to get him arrested, to invite him.
For what crime?
For what crime? Disquiet. If you say disquiet, you know 1979, who did the coup?
Okay.
Who did? You know?
Tell me.
Rawlins.
Yes.
Rawlins was part of the Air Force, right?
Okay.
Was it not part of the Air Force? So if you say the Air Force, there's disquiet there. What do you know that we don't know?
So they're planning to...
I don't, please don't quote me. What I'm trying to say is that, you see, let's be guided. He's a member of parliament. And when the first gun is fired, he, Tuobu, and all those people, all the MPs, they are the first people who will be lined up and whipped.
Okay.
I'm sure you saw what is happening in Guinea. Where are the MPs?
So what was he supposed to do?
What you are supposed to do, if as a member of the legislative arm of government, you know you have a defense and interior committee of parliament. You have a speaker of parliament. Honorable Okujeto Ablaikwa access to the president. He would have more access to the president than any of us.
Okay, so he should have gone to the president?
So you would have to, if you have some information that you think is good for this country's security, you don't incite the military officers, the Air Force officers. Mine is that it's disparaging. I am hoping that, Aisha, if you had said this, I'm sure national security people would have arrested you.
Well,
I'm sure you know.
I don't have that information.
No, I'm only saying,
okay.
people, you know what this guy said, on the whole, what was his name? He said something.
Yeah.
What happened to him?
He was arrested.
He was arrested.
Okay.
So mine is that, you see, anytime we have some of these things we want to share, let's be guided, especially when I just see this, I don't know. So please, I'm hoping that the CID, as they will treat all of us, if we say some of these things, because we are talking about this quiet in the military, well, specifically the Air Force. So we need to know what is quiet. They shouldn't, you know, they should bring him and give us the information you have.
Give us more.
If you have to do a presidential...
I think this is something that we would follow up.
Please follow up.
And because definitely if there is turmoil in the sub-regions, I mean, this is something we don't want to welcome.
We don't want to welcome.
But we also have to know what exactly the intention and purpose was in writing that open letter. Thank you so much, Mr. Adam Bonaa. He's a security analyst and CEO of Security Warehouse.